Hey, how's it going, everybody? Scott Spreitzer here. He is Scott Rickenbach, and we are DocSports.com's Scott and Scott Show. Boy, we're getting closer to the end of the college football regular season already, just a couple of weeks away before we jump into the bowls, playoff talk, all that good stuff. And we've got the first moves basically on a handful of games in both college football and the NFL for the upcoming week. It includes a Friday night football game right through Monday, and that's November 14th, right through the 17th. So we're going to get to all those games in just a moment. Scott, man, you've been rocking it in the NFL, and I wanted you to be able to let everybody know just what you've been doing. You had another big sweep this past weekend in pro football. How'd it go for you overall?
Yeah, it was a solid weekend. All the football went 6-2, and it did include a 4-0 in NFL Sunday action, and that makes me 8-0 my last 8 in NFL and 14-2 my last 16. And also the college top plays, I do want to mention I did lose one on Saturday, but those are on a 6-1 run for the 7 units and above. So been rolling pretty well, including now. Don't forget about basketball, guys. That's of course underway, and I've hit 5 straight with my college and NBA. 5 units and above. So rolling pretty good right now, guys.
College going well, pros going well. Looking forward to this week's card. And over at DocSports.com, we release the entire weekend of plays on Thursday afternoon, so you can check it out all week long to kind of get an idea. Watch our videos and our individual videos and check out our individual homepages. Then you can kind of get an idea of what we're going to have for the weekend come Thursday. Wanted to mention before we jump into the games here, that free account. If you're not yet a member at DocSports.com, just want to give it a trial run, click on that link below the video and you get yourself set up for a free $60 account, which you can then use on any of our daily packages at DocSports.com. Scott, I love the weekends. I mean, 13-4 since Friday, up over $3,500. Swept the top plays this week, and I hit Boise State in college basketball on Saturday, Scott. That was all about Boise coming off an outright loss to Hawaii Pacific, a college basically, in a shopping mall. And they were able to bounce back and get us a big win there. Swept Friday, Saturday, Sunday college baskets, and then we went 6-1 this past week in college and pro football. And that runs now 37-17 since mid-September, going back to last year now. 107-66 and up over $12,000 in college and pro football. And we'll be talking about it all week long, so we won't bore you any longer with the pats on the back. Let's get to it, Scott. We're talking about early line moves. If you're new to these videos, we feature 4 college and 3 NFL games with significant line movement, which is sharp action on Sunday afternoons. And here's the first one we got for this week. Friday night football. Oregon goes back home, almost off a loss in Iowa City, but they were able to get that last second field goal for a win, 18-16 over the Hawkeyes. They're now laying 24 at home to a horrible offensive football team that plays pretty good defense, and that would be Minnesota. Scott, Oregon opened 22. They're up as high as 24 in several shops now.
Yes, and Scott, like you said, they are capable, the Gophers, of playing solid defense, but even though they're off of a bye week here, they are 0-3 on the road this season, and they haven't carried that defensive play to the road. The 3 losses were by a combined score of 110-20. And Oregon is 8-1 this season, including 4-1 at home, and they've allowed a total of only 30 points in those 4 wins. So I know they're off of that tight win at Iowa, but still coming back home now, they should roll to another big home win here. The way I see it, I agree with the move. 3 of Oregon's 4 home wins this season, by the way, by a margin of at least 34 points. And this looks like a good, I think the Sharps are on the right side here.
I think they'll be happy to get back home. The rain was just coming down like crazy all day long in that Iowa game, but they were able to escape with the victory. To Saturday's games in the SEC, big one right off the I can speak English. I'm going to show you in just a minute. But a big game right out of the blocks, Texas at Georgia. Georgia up to 6.5. They opened 5.5. I'll let you give your thoughts on this one because I'm going to save this one for my best bet at the end of the show.
Okay, Scott, the Longhorns, they could easily be 0-4 in true road games this season. They lost at Ohio State and at Florida, and then they have 2 very fortunate road wins at Kentucky and Mississippi State. Texas was statistically dominated by the Wildcats in that Kentucky game, and they had that miracle comeback win in overtime at Mississippi State. So the Longhorns do have the benefit of a bye week here, but they also have given up some big points in back-to-back games now. So One other comment, Texas double revenge from losing both those games last year, including in the postseason, of course, to Georgia. But the Bulldogs, in my opinion, are the more complete team on both sides of the ball. And the other final comment here, Manning has struggled overall in the road games this season. It's been a combination of a few of those he's taken too many sacks, or he's had accuracy issues, or he's had INT issues in a couple of them. And his yardage is just down in some of those games as well. So I would have to say I agree with, though I certainly respect Texas plenty, I agree with the line move here toward Georgia in this one.
Next up to the Big 12, it's TCU at BYU. BYU opened 4.5. They're back home in Provo. That line is up to 6. And I went against them for my 7-star on Saturday, Scott. They seemed to be winning games because of opposing mistakes. And they were badly outgained in a couple of games of late, including the game against Utah, including the game against Iowa State. I mean, badly outgained. And they gave up like 6.5 yards per play in those two games combined. Jumped on Texas Tech. It was a little sluggish for Tech in the first quarter, but then they ran away and won that game 29-7. And boy, this one really comes down, as far as I'm concerned, to, BYU getting their heads right after that loss at Lubbock. And I'll say this, all those, what we used to call bubble burst theory systems that had to do with the team getting, 5 games or deeper into the season before losing their first game, and they being knocked from basically Final Four contention in college football, had to throw them all out the window, Scott, because we got the expanded playoffs. So BYU, this is still an important game for them, laying 6 to TCU.
Yeah, and I'm surprised here this number opened at only 4.5. That makes me suspicious. This is one of those games I would describe as a suspicious line, in my opinion, because considering BYU was 8-0 this season before they did get crushed at Texas Tech. So turnovers were a little bit of an issue in that game. They lost the turnover battle 3-0 to the Red Raiders. They also turned it over on downs a couple times. But BYU overall, their only win this season against a Big 12 team with a winning record in conference games was the win against Utah. And as you mentioned, Scott, in that game, they got outgained. They got outgained by 102 yards by the Utes in that game. Now, remember, too, that last year BYU started 9-0. Then when they finally lost the game, they lost again. They lost back-to-back games. So could this be deja vu after the 8-0 start this season? Possible upset. TCU 6-3 on the season, but 2 of the 3 losses by just 3 points apiece. And the only Big 12 team that now has a winning record on the season in conference games that TCU faced was Arizona State. And even though TCU only lost by 3 in that game, the Horned Frogs were outgained by over 200 yards by the Sun Devils. So this is likely what the Sharps are looking at here in relation to this line move.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'll be on this game, but I can't disagree with the Sharps in this one, especially, again, with the expanded playoffs. Teams are down and out after losing one game late in the season. To the Big Ten, Iowa at USC at the Coliseum. USC opened 5. They're up to 6.5. Now, Iowa's a team that you got to be careful of just kind of not being there between the ears after the way they lost to the Oregon Ducks. I mean, it was Kirk Ferentz football, Scott, and that means, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, the occasional pass, punt the ball on 4th down, no matter where the ball is on the field, and hope the other team makes a lot of mistakes. And it looked for a while that Oregon was going to go on to win by a couple of touchdowns earlier in the game. And then Iowa hung around, but they couldn't get the job done because the offense there's no imagination on this offense, and it's just not good. I agree with the sharp movement here with USC going from 5 to 6.5. How about you?
Yes, I do as well. It's an offense versus defense matchup here for sure. And so the question becomes, can USC get enough stops to cover? Can Iowa score enough to stay within this number? It's an intriguing matchup because of the strength of the Hawkeyes defense, but just a horrible offense. And when Iowa has faced a ranked team this season, they've been held to 16 or less points in all 3 of those games. They lost all 3 games, but they did stay within a margin of 5 or less in all the defeats. USC has scored an average of 29 points in their 3 games against ranked teams this season, and they were never held under 24 points. So when you start looking at numbers like that, it seems like, yeah, USC, this number at -5 definitely seemed too low. I agree with the line move up to 7. They're 5-0 at home this season, and I do have respect for that Hawkeyes defense, but I just don't think they're going to be able to do enough to stay within the number here against this USC team.
Yeah, if they can get refocused. I mean, they held Indiana to 20. And they held, of course, Oregon last week to 18. So if they can get their heads screwed on straight, they might be able to sneak a win here. But I think the line movement was correct, going up 1.5 points there. To the NFL, we head to Madrid, Spain, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 a.m. out here in Pacific time. And we've got the Commanders and the Dolphins. What in the world did Spain do to us that we send them the Commanders and the Dolphins? Maybe they'll want to keep them there. I guess I should be nice because the Dolphins won again. They knocked off Buffalo on Sunday. But the first movement of this one saw the Dolphins open 1.5 and climb to 2.5. A lot of twos out there also, but there are some shops that are showing 2.5 right now on Miami, Scott. And boy, you saw the Dolphins just run wild on Buffalo, but that's what Buffalo does. They give up a lot of rushing yards. Give a ton of credit to Miami for sticking to the game plan. I think they had like a $197 on the ground on 32 carries, and that was really the name of the game on Sunday against the Bills.
Yeah, and this one traditionally, the kind of the wild card here is because this game is over in Spain. But traditionally, this is a situation where I would be riding the Commanders, and I say that because the Dolphins, off that big divisional win and upset victory over the Bills, while Washington got obliterated by Detroit. So Commanders in a bounce back spot, Miami potentially in a flat spot. I know that the Commanders looked really ugly in that game, but we talked about this game last week on the show, and they were facing a Lions team that was going to be fired up off the home loss to the Vikings in the prior week. And sure enough, Detroit just came out and they took it to them in that game. So also prior to the win over Buffalo, the Dolphins' only 2 wins this season were against teams that now have a combined 5-13 record. So for me, it's tough to lay points with a team like that away from home. And, this is a neutral site game. Also, Mariota had decent numbers in place of Daniels, and I think Daniels is definitely going to be out until at least after the upcoming bye week for Washington. So the problem for Washington is the defense continues giving up huge yardage, and they've allowed 36 points per game in the last 5 games. So with wins in 2 of the last 3 games, plus getting the ground game going, I think Miami does look like the right side here. But this is a tough one for me to be involved with for those reasons I just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is a game that I would have normally been jumping on the Commanders, but I just can't do it. And I don't want to lay points with the Dolphins anywhere, but especially, even though it's not a road game, but especially away from home playing in Spain. Good game to not watch, a good game to not bet on as far as I'm concerned. The Buccaneers are at the Buffalo Bills, and the Bucs opened a 6.5-point dog. They've been bet down to 5.5 in this one. And listen, Scott, Buffalo's 2-3 in the last 5 games. The offense has been held to 20 or fewer points in all 3 of those losses. And really, this team is one Derrick Henry fumble away back in week 1 from a 5-4 record. You can run all day, as I just mentioned, on this Buffalo defense. The thing that might be in favor of Buffalo is that the Tampa ground game isn't too hot. What I would say before jumping in on this one is my advice would be to check the receiving room for Tampa Bay, because it was badly banged up going into this game against New England. And, just make sure these guys are going to play at least one of them, Godwin, Evans, whatever. I mean, you got guys that are really banged up, and you got to make sure you're going to have one of your top receivers out there, I think. But, that didn't sway the early movement on Tampa Bay this week.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, they've been dealing with those wide receiver injury issues all season long. It seems like they could be having a much different season if it wasn't for that. So, but a tough call here in this one, the way I see it. Both teams in bounce back mode. Tampa Bay off the home loss to New England, Bills off that ugly road loss at Miami. Here's the key, though. I know Buffalo, as you mentioned, Scott, they've been struggling recently, but still, including playoff games, the Bills are 14-1 straight up at home since the start of last season. Now, the side note to that, though, is 6 of the 14 wins were by 7 or less points. So this line seems about right to me. Tampa Bay's gone 2-0 this season, went off a loss, and 2 of their 3 losses have been by margins of 5 and 6 points. I mean, that's right at this number. I just don't like this game as of now because both teams, again, they're in a bounce back spot, and I respect both these teams. So it's a tough call for me on this one.
Next up, the Chiefs and the Broncos. Can't wait to watch this one at Denver. The Chiefs, they've been getting the early action on Sunday afternoon, a 2.5 opening line all the way up to 4 now at Denver. And I'll say this, Scott, teams that have beaten the Chiefs, no secret, have done so by making Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable. I'm not exactly breaking news here. You put him under pressure and you've had success against him. Buffalo did it on November 2nd before KC's bye week. Denver has 46 sacks on the season. That's 18 more than the next best defense. And the last time these teams played each other when it mattered, And that means you throw out that final game last year late in the season when KC sat everybody. But you go back to midseason last year when it mattered. KC won 16-14. Denver sacked Mahomes 4 times in this game. This really comes down to Kansas City being able to avoid Denver putting Mahomes under uncomfortable pressure.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Chiefs, Andy Reid's always done well off of, or traditionally has done well off a bye week. I think he'll have some things figured out of how to counter this this Denver defense. But of course, this Broncos defense is tough. But the Chiefs, they're rested off the bye week. They're fired up off the loss at Buffalo, which preceded that bye week. And I think that's the thinking behind this move that we've seen this line move up. The KC offense has looked much better than the Broncos offense, but I still respect the Broncos defense. And of course, they're at home here. Also, the Chiefs are 1-3 this season in games played away from Kansas City. Mahomes struggled some at Buffalo, but overall he had been on a surge in the passing game. And so the thing that I don't like about the Broncos here is I understood them struggling with the Houston defense, but how the hell did they struggle with the Raiders defense on Thursday? And that has me concerned about Denver here. So I understand and agree with the line move. I think it's a good situational spot for Kansas City, and I think they'll figure out how to, with play calling and schemes and things like that, they'll figure out a way to counter that Broncos, tremendous pass rush.
That kicked off my NFL sweep this past week was the Raiders plus the points over Denver. And I'm telling you, I was sweating the heck out of it because Geno and the offense did nothing. And when Denver kicked the field goal to go up 10-7, I think it was late third quarter. We had a whole fourth quarter to go. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm getting 9.5 here, whatever it was. They're going to lose by 10. You could feel it. But Denver couldn't keep it going or couldn't get it going in the fourth quarter, like you mentioned. Couldn't put that final touchdown on the board. Thank you very much. And we covered the spread, losing 10-7 with the Los Angeles Raiders. Get your best bet ready here in just a second, then I'm going to throw mine out there. But I wanted to tell everybody real quickly, again, we've had some comments on these, and these are Sunday afternoon moves from the legit openers. So we're not talking about the look-ahead lines from a week ago. These are all kind of like legitimate reopens, if you will, on Sunday afternoons, and then how they're being bet into it. For those of you who ask, that's kind of how we're covering it here. But let's get to the best bet. Scott, kick it off.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to that game that, as we talked about, it's one of those that is a tough call on the side between Miami and the Washington Commanders in the NFL early game on Sunday in Madrid. What I like here, though, is actually that total, which I believe right now is right around a 47.5. And the reason I like it so much is because I see Washington responding here, and I've been impressed enough with Mariota on the offense that I think they can do some damage against this Miami team, but I don't trust the Commanders' defense for 1 second. And now with Miami getting their ground game going, I mean, yes, it was a really big game for them this past weekend, but even before that, we've seen some signs of it. I think Miami's going to be able to run well, which of course sets up your passing attack. And this one, I really believe, is going to turn into a shootout. So I'm going over the 47.5 in the Miami-Washington matchup in NFL early Sunday action.
And with these two offenses and these two quarterbacks, there's a chance you might get a short field situation for the opposing offense because of an interception,
That's
deep
right.
in their own territory. That's always something I like to look as a possibility when I'm looking to play overs in the NFL. I'm going to head back to college. I'm going to go to the SEC. I mentioned Texas and Georgia was going to be this week's best bet on the show. Georgia's gone from 5.5 up to 6.5. And now that it jumped over 6, I like Texas here. Back-to-back performances by Arch Manning before his bye week, but all of a sudden, good performances, I should say, before the bye week. And all of a sudden, though, the defense is giving up chunks of yards, and that does scare me a little bit in the last 2 games. But here's the thing, if you look at this team, last year Texas closed a 3-point favorite in one of the meetings with Georgia. They closed a 4-point favorite in the other meeting with Georgia. And of course, they lost both of those games, one of them in overtime. Georgia was able to get to Texas over and over as far as getting their pass rush on the Longhorns. I mean, they tore them up in those 2 games, and it was crazy. It was like a dozen sacks, 13 sacks in those 2 games combined. And Georgia right now, Scott, they've got a 2.5% sack rate this season. That's way down the list of college football teams. A far cry from a top 10 sack defense, which would be around, 10% in that neighborhood. Throw out games against Austin Peay and Marshall. Georgia has 8 sacks in the last 7 games. That's it. So if, Arch is starting to play better, We know he played really bad early on, but I think they'll be able to protect him from the sacks, from the pass rush. And I think both teams were better last year than this year's versions for both teams. But again, I think that number's a little too high now. So my best bet for the show is going to be the Texas Longhorns plus the points over the Georgia Bulldogs. He's Scott Rickenbach. I'm Scott Spreitzer. This is Scott and Scott. And before I let you go, Rickenbach, any last words?
Just appreciate all you guys watching the show here each and every week, and we're doing our best to give you good, solid information, and appreciate you checking in here. And don't miss all the premium pick action at DocSports.com.
That guy right next to me has been red hot in the NFL. I've been doing pretty good in college and pro football for about over a year now at Docs. So check it out all week long. All of our videos. Go to the home pages if you wish and see what we got going this week in football, college basketball, NBA, all that good stuff. He's Scott. I'm Scott. We're Doc Sports. Put them in the win column, everybody. We'll talk to you again next Sunday night, Monday for another Scott and Scott early move show. Talk to you then, everybody.